Hey, it's Josh with Mulberry Downs, and I just wanted to share with you the little winter project that I've been working on over the last few days. So this is a bottom heat propagation bed, and I've been wanting to build one of these for the last couple of years. And in the past, I've used, buckets or cups or something that have sand in them, and that works fine. But the issue that you run into, especially if you're taking dormant hardwood cuttings like this mulberry here, is that you kind of need to wake this up somehow. And if you apply heat to the whole thing, there's a tendency for them to put out top growth where you end up with leaves or stems. And you think, oh, good, it's rooted. But then you come out a few weeks later and you realize it's all wilted and dead. And you pull it out and you realize there's no roots or anything at the bottom. So really what you want to do with dormant cuttings like this is to wake up the bottom of the cutting that's going to be submerged in the sand like this instead of the top. So in the rest of this greenhouse right now, it's probably 50 degrees or something like that. But if you check the temperature in the sand itself, it's going to be closer to 65, 70 degrees. So in theory, it should cause the bottom of the cutting to wake up so that you start putting on new roots, and it doesn't waste energy putting on green growth. So building this was actually pretty easy, and I'm going to show you a little video on how I went about it if you want to do something like that yourself. Watch this. In order to build the frame, I just used some basic 2x4s as it was a little bit cheaper than buying something like a 2x8, and I'm just going to double them up as you'll see later. But the bottom is just made from some scrap plywood that I had lying around, and then I put a board across the bottom to just add a little bit of additional support. And then you can see now I'm adding in some of this foam core insulation, and the main reason for that is since this is going to be up off the ground, you're going to have airflow coming under it, and you can have heat loss if you don't have it properly insulated on the bottom. You can see I lined the bottom of this bed with these pieces of foam insulation, and I just got these pre-cut. They were 2x2 pieces that I got at Lowe's. I didn't want to mess around with getting one of the big sheets and cutting it to size, and since I wanted to make about a 2-foot by 6-foot bed, I figured it'd be easier to just buy 3 of these and just slot them in. Aside from this one that I had to shave off a little bit, fits up pretty good. So now you can see I'm adding the second level of 2x4s on top of this, and I'm just going to secure it with some small pieces of extra cedar fence board I also had lying around. It's always good to utilize scraps as much as you can. So this is just some black plastic that I found in the painting section, and I'm laying this in here as kind of a liner because I don't want a bunch of wet sand and water sitting up against these boards. So I'm just unfolding it and then tucking it in as best I can, and honestly this was a little bit more challenging than I anticipated. So I took some of these concrete pavers and just set them in there temporarily just to try to hold the plastic down a little bit better so that I could get it a little bit more fitted, because otherwise it kept coming up and I didn't want a bunch of air pockets between the wood and the plastic when I went to add the sand. And now I'm going through and I'm just going to add a couple inches of just pure sand. This will just create a little bit of insulation at the bottom between the heating cable and that foam insulation that I added before. This heating cable that I'm putting in is actually designed to prevent ice buildup on roofs. And after looking at a few of the reviews, I saw a lot of them actually had a built-in temperature regulator, but they seemed to not want to turn on if it was above 40 degrees. And since I wanted it closer to 70, I was a little concerned that that wouldn't end up working. For this particular bed, that's about 6 feet by 2 feet, I used a 30-foot cable. And once that's in, I laid a couple rocks down to just hold the cable in place temporarily, and then started pouring in bags of sand and perlite to cover everything up. I added a little bit of the perlite to just lighten it up a little bit because sand is so heavy. In retrospect, I probably could have ended up adding more of the perlite, but live and learn. You can just go ahead and mix it in really good. And at this point I started to realize it was a little bit better to add a little bit of sand and a little bit of the perlite. And then once that was all mixed in, I went through and just watered it down good. Since all of this is dry, you'll be surprised at how much water it actually takes to get it initially soaked. I had to water it, and then I would dig down and check it, and I had to do that multiple times before it was finally soaked through. Then all I did was plugged in the heating cable to this thermostat, and we were all set to go. So you can see here, I've already started to stick some cuttings. I've got some currants over here and some mulberries over here. And if we focus on the temperature, hopefully you can see that, shows it's about 70 degrees in the sand, in opposed to the rest of the greenhouse where it's in about 50 degrees. So with this thermostat here that I've got hooked up to the heating cable, it's regulating the temperature and turning it on and off to make sure that it's maintaining about a 70 degree temperature. So I'll have to report back to you guys on the success, but so far so good. Thanks for watching.